Alrighty, guys, let's talk about the penultimate episode, the second to last episode of Season 2 of Gen V, the spinoff to The Boys. Let's talk about it. Guys, if you have not seen the episode, this is going to be a full spoiler discussion, so again, no worries if you haven't, but just make sure to save this segment, save the podcast for later, and come back once you have seen it. Let's talk about this episode. So, just for a little bit of background, a little bit of context, if you are joining us for the first time, and by the way, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome to the Access Blockbusters Pod or YouTube channel. But we also have a spoiler discussion. I did episodes 1 through 5 together. That was during the brunt of Peacemaker Season 2, so just didn't have enough time to break out those episodes. But I think now we're going to be able to do individual recaps for the episodes. So we did one for episode 6, and we're doing one here for episode 7. Previously, though, I've been enjoying the season. I think one of the things that has been interesting for me to watch is the fact that at the end of Season 1, they set up this really interesting and fascinating conundrum with all the kids now being out of the school and in this mysterious prison, which we've learned since then has been called Elmira. That's the prison that they were in at the end of Season 1, when Homelander blasts Marie. And at the end of Season 1, it's kind of this whole, okay, so where are we going to go from here? You know, it's upending the status quo. There's going to be some interesting changes happening. And then in Season 2, in the trailer, we see right away, no, the kids are right back to school. And it's that thing where what worked so well in Gen V Season 1, the basic premise of that season, is the fact that they're at school and it's unique and it's interesting. And that's true. But I was kind of thinking, well, it's a little disappointing because I wanted to see them in a different setting. I wanted to see the status quo upended a little bit. But fine, we're back in the school. We're back at Godolkin University. Now, throughout the first 6 episodes of Gen V Season 2, while there have been some really interesting things that have been happening, some very interesting revelations, for example, like with Annabeth, Marie's sister, coming back into the picture in last week's episode, I feel like the showrunners have been stringing us along a little bit. I feel like while the show hasn't lost my interest entirely, I do think that the show has been relying on us to be curious about what's going on, and it was just starting to overstay its welcome a little bit. Dean Cypher, I thought through the first 3 or 4 episodes, was a fascinating character. I thought, oh wow, this is such an interesting character, because Marie was like, oh, he's a human, but then he has superpowers, so is he a soup? And then what is he doing with Godolkin's body in there? I mean, such an interesting character, but by the time you get to episode 6, he's just kind of doing the same thing of, oh, I'm one step ahead of you, don't, watch out for me. And it was getting a little bit old. And also at the end of episode 6, in episode 6 they meet Stan Edgar, which I thought was a really good connection to the world of the boys, but I thought at the end of episode 6, Marie just kind of goes off with Kate, and it's like, okay, I guess so. So we head into episode 7. And episode 7, I have to say, because look, I didn't think that any of the episodes thus far have been filler necessarily. I hate filler episodes more than almost anything in the world. And I don't think that every episode of television needs to be the most action-packed and doesn't need to have 6 twists in it or anything like that. No, not at all. I really enjoy episodes, where characters are just talking. If it's done really well, if it progresses the story and progresses the characters in an interesting way, I'm not asking for action and twists and everything to be in every single episode. But again, I think with the premise of Gen V Season 2, I think we have been waiting for almost the entire season for the other shoe to drop. And so it's 2 episodes left, and I was like, okay, well, I hope we actually get to see something. And I think this episode, I don't know if it's too little too late. I truthfully, I don't know how they're going to resolve what they set up, because what they set up at the end of episode 7 is, let's not mince words, it's a massive, massive twist. I don't know how they're going to resolve it, but I am fascinated by it. And I think for the first time in Gen V Season 2, especially the first time since the beginning, I feel a sense of momentum building again for these characters and for what's going on. Because now we run into the situation where that old, burned, bruised, battered man, that Cypher, quote-unquote Cypher, the Cypher that we'd been following the entire season, had been holding in that prison, is the actual Cypher. And I'm assuming, I haven't read any theories, and I didn't catch it in the episode if this was revealed, but I'm assuming that is still Godolkin. So I'm assuming that these 2 characters, Cypher and Godolkin, are one and the same person. I guess that was something where at the very beginning of Gen V Season 2, you saw this character running away from the fire and that horrific opening scene where characters get burned and soups are created and all that kind of stuff. But there was no indication in that scene that Godolkin had powers. And so I kind of just thought, and this was a smart play on the show, I just kind of thought, oh, this is a human, just a random human who was experimenting to get the soups. But it turns out either through that experience at the very beginning of Gen V Season 2, or afterwards, or before that at some point, He has Compound V. He is a soup, and he is very, very, very powerful. He has this insane superpower of manipulation that he can use. So, and in order to get there, I mean, I'm gonna be honest though. In order to get there, right? Because I thought that once that twist manifests itself, and once we get to the last 15 minutes of the episode, I was so on board. I was like, this is so interesting for the trajectory of the show. And the fact that Dean Cypher, that we'd been following, himself was a puppet. Although I have questions about this, and I guess we can get to a couple of them here. So one is assuming that unless, the actual Dean Cypher / Godolkin's powers are just absolutely unlimited in range, I'm assuming that body had to have been close by to the Dean Cypher that we've been seeing, because otherwise that is crazy that he would be able to control this one guy from, I don't know, miles and miles away. That is just absolutely insane. But maybe we're going to find out he is literally the most powerful soup in the world. That, again, would be crazy. The other question that I think is an intentional question, it has to be, because the show is going out of its way, has been going out of its way to show us this, is those fits of rage that the human Dean Cypher has been having towards this body. And one wonders, right? One wonders what the point of that all is, if, in fact, this actual Godolkin Cypher, I'm going to call him Godolkin Cypher, is the actual Dean Cypher, is the actual threat here, right? And nobody, the assumption is nobody's watching, and so it doesn't really make sense for all this to be happening if nothing's going on there. Again, I'm assuming it's an intentional choice because, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to show it all the time if nothing is going to come of it. I just don't quite understand what the point of that all is. And of course, Sister Sage knew this whole time, right? She knew this whole time that this was going to happen. She's obviously one step ahead of everything, so that all makes sense here. And I like that, right? I don't know if there is more to the character of the human Dean Cypher versus the Godolkin Cypher, but now I think we set up this really interesting paradigm here of this crazy character who, we've had this dichotomy in the boys universe and in Gen V season 2 of not just getting rid of humans is what the soups want to do, which is, again, horrific and crazy. But now we have characters who want to get rid of not just humans, but weaker soups, quote unquote weaker soups, right? In their eyes. And that is just horrific, and that's scary. And it's now setting up an even more interesting dichotomy and problem here for the characters in the boys universe. I am so interested to see what's going on here. I have to say, like, going back to what I said earlier, like I said, I think the mechanics to get there, right, in order to get us to Dean Cypher or the Cypher Godolkin were a little sloppy, I have to say, because I think that Marie, and it's hard because you want the characters to be human enough that they make mistakes and they don't act rationally all the time. I get that. But at the same time, some of the things that Marie was doing in this episode, I was like, but surely we realize that this is all a trap, right? I just feel like these characters are smart enough and have been set up to be smart enough to realize that this whole thing was a trap with Dean Cypher. I don't understand how these characters didn't think it through more, and Marie was, I guess she was so blinded by her ambition or her, I don't know what it was, but I just feel like you had to have realized, I mean, that's what I was saying the entire episode was, you have to surely realize that this is all a trap, right? And I guess the characters just weren't thinking, or they knew it was a trap and they wanted to go for it anyways. That's one of my tropes, the tropes that I like the least in movies and television shows, where it's like, of course I know it's a trap, I'm still gonna go anyways because I think I can do it better. And it's like, okay, but in this series you have a character in Annabeth who can literally see the future, which we haven't seen yet, I don't think. Not the smartest move in my opinion, but okay. So again, the mechanics to get to the whole Cypher situation were a little bit convoluted in my eyes, but still, I think that what we set up at the end of this episode was super, super interesting. So again, I am very fascinated. I am so fascinated to see what happens in episode 8. Like I said, though, I don't know if it's too little too late. I frankly have no idea. Could it be, enough in one episode to wrap up the fact that now apparently Godolkin / real Cypher is just walking around killing a bunch of students on campus? I have no idea. Are we going to find out how this all came to be with this human version of Cypher? Why is he going into fits of rage against the actual Cypher when it looks like he was being controlled by the actual Cypher all this time? It's all crazy. It's all coming to a head. I don't know. I feel like Gen V Season 1 built up to its finale where There was just mass chaos at Godolphin University in the last episode, which I thought it was crazy, but it felt satisfying. And then Homelander blasting Marie, obviously. I don't know what's going to happen in this last episode, but I asked for things to happen, and maybe a little bit, too little, too late, but things are happening in this last episode, in the second to last episode of Gen V Season 2. So I'm very curious again to see where this show will go. Guys, what did you think? Did you watch episode... I'm assuming you watched it if you're listening to this spoiler discussion, but once you watched Gen V Season 2 Episode 7, what did you think about it? Did you guys enjoy the episode, or did you guys think it was maybe disappointing, or did you guys think it's great and it's going to set up a fascinating finale like I do? Let me know in the comments down below.